Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be sharing my birth story of my son with y'all. On August 20th, 2020 at 7:20, okay 20s, in the morning, I gave birth to my beautiful, amazing, handsome son, Mason Bradley Jenkins. And it was quite the experience. Yeah, there we go. Experience. I do want to put this disclaimer in here. If you are pregnant and are terrified of labor and delivery, of childbirth, save this video until afterwards, and then we can kind of talk about our experiences together. I just do not want to scare or traumatize anybody because I plan to be very detailed, and I really want to be honest with y'all about this experience. Now, my son is my second child. I had my daughter in December 24th in 2018. And for that experience, I was actually induced. So I went to the hospital the night before, got some medication, labor progressed, I got an epidural and Pitocin. So after that, I didn't feel as much pain. At some point I felt contractions, but I'd say after 15 hours of labor, halfway through I was feeling it, and the other half, it was just smooth sailing from there. Quite a different experience with my son. And so I really want to start the week before I gave birth. When you're further along in your pregnancy, you start going to the doctor's office every week, and usually they will check your cervix every week, or maybe they'll offer to check. When I first started going every week, they checked my cervix. It was high, closed, nothing was happening. And during that time, I had Braxton Hicks contractions frequently, but it was to no avail. Nothing was happening, no signs of active labor. So when I went to the doctor's office the week before I gave birth, they asked if I wanted a cervix check, and I'm like, no, I haven't been having any contractions, just Braxton Hicks. Y'all can say that check for next week. That was the first mistake. If you go to your doctor's office and you get there weekly, if they're offering or they say they want to check your cervix, let them check your cervix, okay? Now, I do want to note that around between 30 and 33 weeks pregnant, they let me know that I was measuring a week ahead. And they even told me, they were like, yeah, so when you're 39, which would be 40 weeks pregnant, you can actually get induced if the baby's not here. Because at that time when they checked my cervix, nothing was happening. And I was like, get induced like early? Like, you mean like in 2 weeks or 3? No, not interested. Let's see what happens at the 40-week mark, and then we'll go from there. My birthing plan was to labor as long as I could at home, in my own bed, in my own surroundings, and then get to the hospital, get an epidural, and then deliver my baby. That's the plan. I know some people don't want an epidural, some people want the whole natural route. Not me. The drugs, hey, I want them. So that was my plan. Can y'all guess that ain't what happened? Okay. Now, when we fast forward, I am actually 39, 40 weeks pregnant, starting this week we're talking about. And on Monday and Tuesday evenings, I start having contractions. And I know the difference between Braxton Hicks and real contractions, because Braxton Hicks is that tightening. It's uncomfortable. I had it throughout my entire pregnancy, but now I could feel like more pain and cramping, like further where my uterus is or further down. I'm like, okay, something's really happening here. But they were mild. They were 10 to 12 minutes apart, like I said. And I did, which might help, I downloaded an app to help me keep up with those contractions, and I'll make sure I link it and put it right here. This app, really, you just press the button and it times it for you, so you can see your frequency, the duration, so you know exactly kind of the timing on what's happening. But I was just like, it's mild. And when I told my boss about it, because I was working from home, we're doing the video conference stuff, and I was like, yeah, I'm having these contractions, but they're not, they're not consistent, they're mild. And she's like, yeah, but I really think like you're in labor. And I was like, no, I don't think so, because my biggest fear was going to the hospital and them telling me, yeah, you gotta go back home and labor some more. Wednesday night rolls around and the contractions start again. But this time they're much more painful. It's like, oh, the ones the night before were mild. These aren't mild anymore, but they are not very close together. They're 8-9 minutes apart. And this is between 10 and midnight. So I'm like, I'm just gonna lay in my bed. I'm just gonna try to breathe through this, and then we'll see what happens. I do have the app on my phone, like I said, so I'm still timing them just to be sure. Well, 12:30 hits and these contractions get a little bit more painful, and then they get to be about 8 minutes apart. And I'm like, okay, this is what it felt like when I was induced, the beginning of my induction with my daughter. So I was like, okay, this is the beginning of active labor because it's more intense, it's becoming more frequent. And I made it to about 2 or 2:30 in the morning when I said to myself, I think something's gonna be happening tonight or in the morning. And so I was like, it's 2:30, let me go ahead and take a shower, because my contractions are now about 6-7 minutes apart. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take a shower, I'm gonna get my husband, and then we're gonna go to this hospital. So as I'm taking a shower, the contractions are getting more intense. And I'm just trying to get through the water. I'm just trying to wash and get through the water, let the water hit me, get through my shower. So I get through my shower, I let my husband know. At this point, it's like 3 o'clock, getting close to 3:30. These contractions are like 6 minutes apart. They're much more intense. And I tell him, I was like, hey, if you want to take a shower, you might want to do that right now, because I think this is gonna, this is where it's leading. I shouldn't have been so generous. Like, why does he need a shower? I don't know if my mind just wasn't there, because I really don't know. But it was at that moment at 3:30 where I should have said, hey, put our stuff in the car, because mistake again, my stuff was not already in the car. My bags were packed, but they were not already in the car. Y'all, put your stuff in the car, okay? Trust me, put it in the car. But instead of us putting our stuff in the car and getting ready to go at 3:30, or me calling the doctor at 3:30 and saying, hey, something's happening, I say, go ahead and take your shower. And I continue to labor in the bed. 4 o'clock hits, and I'm like, oh, shit. And it is just pain. It is, contractions hurt. It's just like, if you want to know what a contraction feels like, it's like somebody taking a knife and then stabbing you and then kind of like turning it, and then you're just supposed to like breathe through it, because it's like a gradual stab and then a turn that's really painful, and then somebody like turning it back and then pulling it back out. Because contractions are like these hills that go, like up and down, and it fades out and it goes up and down. So I feel like contractions are like getting stabbed, just like here, stab, turn back out, pause, let me stab you again, turn it, pull it back out, pause, and then you just keep getting stabbed, like from 10 minutes apart to 8 minutes apart to 5 minutes apart to even closer. If you're wondering what contractions feel like to me. Okay, so when somebody says just breathe, can you imagine just breathing through consistently, constantly getting stabbed in your abdomen, lower abdomen, over and over and over again, and all you can do about it is breathe. So now we're at 4 o'clock. I call my doctor and he says, hey, what's going on? And I say calmly, I said, I'm in a lot of pain. My contractions are about 5 minutes apart almost. I think it's time. And he says, great, I'll meet you at labor and delivery. Okay, and I'm like, okay, great. Now the drive, which is also important to know at all times, how far the hospital is from wherever you are. My hospital is about 25 minutes away, which wasn't bad for me. I'm like, okay, just got to make it 25 minutes to the hospital. However, when it was time to get in the car, my husband was putting our bags in the car, which should have already been in the car. When I had to get up off the bed and try to walk through having a contraction, I couldn't walk. And I'm laughing, but it was like, no, I have to stop what I'm doing and sit down and breathe through this contraction, because it was now very intense. And I knew in my mind, this contraction hurts way more than the contractions I felt when I was having my daughter. So I knew like I was getting past the point of 1, 2, 3 centimeters. Like, no, something more is happening. So it actually just takes me a while to get in the car, because I'm trying to get through the contractions literally as I'm walking to the car. So then we get in the car. Praise be to the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. We get in the car and I have a contraction as soon as I sit down, and it's just like, okay, let's just get there. And as we're driving and I have a contraction, I am not being very calm at all. I am kind of screaming, making a little bit of noise, just trying to get through it. And then after it passes, I talk a little bit. I don't even know what I say to my husband. I remember talking, and then I have another contraction. After that, there is no more talking. There is no more lightheartedness. There is no more nothing. All there is me trying to get through contractions. My pain level has elevated from like 6, 7 to 10. I'm at a 10. I am screaming in the car by the time we pull up to the hospital. And in my mind, when we got in the car, I was like, yeah, you can park the car and I'm gonna walk in. Honey, they had to pull out the wheelchair, roll me in, because I could not walk. I was in so much pain. So we do get to the hospital at approximately 6:15. They take me upstairs and to triage. And if you know anything about labor and delivery, you go to triage to get checked in. They check your cervix, check on the baby, and that's where they determine whether you go home or you stay. So I get to triage, and I am by myself, one because of COVID, but also because those rooms are really small. And that is the other thing. Because of COVID, when I got to the hospital, I had to put a mask on. So it's like wheelchaired in with my mask on, get to triage, still have my mask on. And then she checks my cervix, which is incredibly painful. I mean, a scale 1 to 10, we're still at a 10, because not only am I having the contractions, but now you're having to check. She checks my cervix, and to me, it's taking a while. And it's painful because I feel like when you get your cervix checked, okay, here's the TMI, they're putting their fingers there. And honestly, it felt like she was like trying to spread her fingers out even more. And I'm like, sis, I know you're a professional, but what are you doing? I don't say that, but I am thinking that, trying to get through the pain, because it just feels like she's trying to spread her fingers even more than what my body wants to allow. So I'm getting nervous, like, oh my gosh, am I really not, you know, did it not do anything? And then she says, okay, yeah, I just wanted to be sure, you're 8 centimeters dilated. And I say, oh, to her face. And then I immediately apologize for cursing in her face. But y'all, it was just like, I don't even know how to describe the feeling of knowing that I'm already 8 centimeters and my reality kicking in, that my birth plan probably ain't gonna go that way, because getting an epidural, it takes time. You have to get the anesthesiologist, you have to sign the paperwork, you got to actually sit still long enough to get the needle and all the medicine kick in. And you usually do that way before you're 8 centimeters. So at 8 centimeters, I just immediately said, I'm probably not gonna be able to get an epidural, am I? She said, she was so kind, beautiful woman. And she said, well, I don't know, we'll have to see. Girl. Mike was parking the car, and then he managed to get upstairs to where I was. I am now in the room to deliver the baby, and I am in excruciating pain, but they checked my cervix again, and now I'm between 8 and 9 centimeters. They're waiting on the doctor to come in, and they also let me know that I cannot have an epidural at this point. And I am terrified, and I begin to cry because, 1, I'm already in so much pain. 2, it wasn't a part of my plan. And then 3, I even say, like, I can't do this. And it's so sad to think of how I felt in that moment. And I don't even know if it's because I actually believed that I couldn't do it, or because I knew I was gonna have to do it. I think that's it. Like, it wasn't that, like, my body couldn't do it. I was just terrified because I knew it's what I was gonna have to do. And on top of that, it's just a scary thought, hoping everything goes well. So then we get to a point where I can actually feel like my body wants to push the baby out, which I think is incredible, what a woman's body can do or knows to do on its own. And I could actually feel, of course, the pain, the pressure, and actually the feeling to push. And so the doctor said, you're in a lot of pain. You can't get an epidural, but what I can do is give you something that's gonna numb, you know, your vagina, to where when you push it out, you won't feel all the pain of pushing the baby out. And I was like, okay, you know, I'm like, okay, finally something that's gonna help. And I know in my mind that when you get something numb, it's gonna be a shot. What I wasn't prepared for was for it to be a shot inside of my vagina, because that's what it was. I can't even think of the word. I'm gonna put it here. Okay, what it's really called. Something with a P, blocks, whatever, okay? I wasn't actually prepared for that part when he said numbing. I don't know what I thought, but the next thing I know is I feel a needle literally inside of my vagina. And it's like, at that point, I don't even know what to say, but I screamed probably the loudest the entire time. And I actually have to get 2 of those shots. It's like one on the right side and one on the left. And that was probably the worst part of my entire labor and delivery. The contractions hurt. The experience is terrifying, but those shots hurt like crazy. But then after the shots, that area got numb to where I still felt the contractions, but that was still numb down there. Also, I do want to note that it's incredibly interesting and horrible at the same time. When you're in labor and delivery, you also have to like sign all of these documents and giving like your consent with things. That's my one thing I want to note. When I'm in labor and in pain and going through all of this stuff, you want me to listen and sign on the dotted line of consent? I think it's pretty jacked up. I want to look more into that. I did not even know about this shot that numbed everything. I've only really heard mostly about an epidural, or like the drugs that kind of make you a little doozy before you get an epidural or something like that. So like really read up and like do your due diligence when it comes to labor, delivery services, your doctors, the hospital, so you can just feel, I don't want to, yeah, more comfortable at least with your decision. So then it came time to push. I could feel all of my contractions because you push when you're having the contraction. I could feel the urge to push. I could feel the pressure when pushing. And it was incredibly daunting, having to breathe, having to push through the contraction, having to push the right way in long enough. And I honestly don't even know how long I was pushing. I think it might have been through like 5-6 contractions, something like that. And then the next thing I heard was my baby boy crying. And it was just like, oh, thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. My baby is here. And it is just some part of that, of hearing the cries, of knowing my baby is there, that made everything that I was feeling and experiencing and going through so worth it. Knowing that I did all of that and he's here and he's alive, this little person that's been inside of my body, you're here, and he is the most beautiful thing. And to hear him cry and to see that he's healthy, it's just a blessing. Let's recap. Okay, started really feeling pains at 12:30 in the morning. Contractions hit heavier at 2:30 in the morning. I leave for the hospital, get to the hospital at 6:15. And then I had my baby at 7:20 that morning. So labor and delivery for me was like super fast, super painful, but super fast and completely unforgettable. Completely unforgettable. I hope you guys maybe were informed and entertained, but just kind of know, like, make sure you get your cervix checked. Make sure you have those bags packed. Make sure you have a birthing plan in mind, but also know that birthing plan can go to shits. Like, it will just go out the window, and you have to be prepared for that. I was prepared for that for my daughter. I was not prepared for that for my son. So yeah, just be prepared for anything. Thank y'all so much for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and follow me on Instagram, and let me know anything else you want to know about motherhood, lifestyle, beauty. I got you. Peace.